Makes sense always to start with what God has this. So Ephesians 4, verses 1 through 3, bearing with one another in love, being diligent to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And then also in Colossians 3 and verse 12, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. We can see from God's word that he expects his followers to be a lot of things. That's a big list of things that we need to embody. And being patient certainly is one of them. So my question is, are we inherently patient as people? I hear some laughing. Okay. No, I think that's right. I don't think we're just inherently patient with one another. Sometimes we're not even very patient with ourselves. Okay. So patience is really a learned behavior. I think we could all agree with that. So it's something our kids need to be taught. And who is it then that should be the ones teaching your kids about patience? One of those rhetorical questions. Okay. It's you. Okay. It's you. If you're a grandparent, it's you. You have that opportunity. Sometimes as brethren, we can have opportunities to teach our fellow brethren's children about things. But ultimately, it falls to us as parents to be the ones to be teaching our kids, and especially about patience. Kids learn things at different ages. Okay? I think we know that. If you've had kids and they've come up through the ages, you know how that works. Most kids start to get kind of an idea about patience around the ages of 6 or 7. They start to kind of understand maybe what you've been talking to them about. But kids are kids. We shouldn't expect them to really have a good understanding of a lot of things at a young age, should we? I think we can identify with that. But society has kind of a different idea. Our society or the world says in some cases that they can. Okay? So I have a question. How do you train a horse? I'll just tell you, I have no idea. Okay? I'm not a horse guy. I've ridden on a horse. Okay? That's as close as I've gotten. It was at the supermarket. You put the quarter in. So that went reasonably well. Okay, till the quarter ran out, and then I had to get another quarter. So, but I think we've heard a phrase about training a horse. It's said that you break a horse. Okay? You don't break its spirit, but you break its will. Okay? A horse is not just inherently all excited about us jumping on it. Okay? And it will express itself by making sure you land on the ground somewhere else. All right? Because that's not something that they would perceive as being natural. So we have to break its will. Okay? You don't break its spirit, okay, but you break its will. Just like God seeks to do with his people. And even further than that, and we heard Jason talking about that a couple times in his talk just a minute ago. What did Jesus ask in his prayer before he was captured? Not my will, but thine be done. Well, that takes a lot of introspection. It takes a lot of understanding that it's safe enough for me to follow after someone else's will, so I have to give mine up. Okay. Back to the horse. You teach a horse, you work with it, you train it, you encourage it. Yes, you discipline the thing, and you're patient with it. Okay? Anybody ever had to train a horse? You're among friends. Okay. Can you do that in about a half hour? You're laughing. Okay. I mean, I already told you I don't know. So, okay. Takes more than a half hour. It takes a while to do that. Okay. So we're going to have to be patient with it. But as you're being patient, you're doing some things with this horse. You can't just say, is like, okay. You have to do a lot of stuff before you get there. Eventually, the horse is going to get it, that it's all right for humans to be around, and if one of us wants to go for a ride, the horse knows that it's going to be all right. Okay? It's going to be safe for the horse. The horse has changed from not wanting you to be on it to thinking, okay, this will work. I'm good with this. Okay? Kids aren't horses. But the process of training and developing behavior is pretty much the same. Okay? However, I want to talk for just a couple minutes about this, and I think most of us understand, but if you're not clear what's happened, probably my generation, there's really been a shift in what's going on in our society with what expectations are and what is acceptable and what isn't. Teaching the idea of disciplining your child has been minimized or abandoned altogether. Okay? And it's been replaced with this idea of self-development of behavior by the child. The child is just supposed to be able to figure this stuff out all by himself. Don't get in the way, okay? You might mess it up. So statements like this are very commonplace. Your child must be allowed to find his or her own truth. You heard that one? Okay. And I tease with my wife, we'll talk about this sometimes, but I'll say, little Sparky came home and says, I think I'm a llama. Okay. Well, really? Okay, let's talk about that. And this is the kind of stuff that they're hearing, okay? And they're being inundated with these kinds of ideas. Here's another one. Correcting a child harms him and will create mental problems. You correct your child. Here's one. Forcing your thoughts and your values on your child stifles his creativity and his free will. And this is probably the worst one. You have no right to make your children obey you or even teach them to believe what you believe. The child will never reach his full potential and will simply be brainwashed if you do it. This is where we live now. This is what's going on. And we need to be aware of this because this ties in. I know you're thinking, well, what's this got to do with patience? Be patient. Okay, but it has a whole lot to do with what we've got to deal with. Well, what are God's thoughts about this? As God's people, we of course have a book that's going to help us understand what it is that He says about these things that we have to live with. So, Proverbs 29:15. The rod and a rebuke give wisdom, but a child who gets his own way brings shame to his mother. Question. You ever been at the supermarket, Walmart, and there's little Buffy screaming her head off, laying on the floor in the aisle, okay, yelling and hollering, and how's mom? If she's turning red, okay, she's embarrassed. Okay, this is a problem. Now she may or may not know what to do about it, but it can bring some embarrassment or bring some shame. Okay, there. Here's another one. Proverbs 12 and verse 1. One who loves discipline loves knowledge, but one who hates rebuke is stupid. Now, the question I have here, who is this that's being addressed? Sorry? Okay. More specific. Is this for the kid or is this for the parent? Okay. I see this is for the parents. Okay. There's no kid on earth that wants you to come at him with a rod or a rebuke or discipline or anything. But if the parent doesn't love discipline, there's a lack of love of knowledge of the whole point of that. But if you hate rebuke, you don't think that that's something that's necessary, you're missing the point. Okay? So says God. Proverbs 13:24, he who withholds his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently. And in Hebrews 12, for the moment, all discipline seems not to be pleasant, but painful. Yet to those who have been trained by it, afterward it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. These are God's thoughts. So we can contrast what the world's out there spewing versus what God is trying to help us understand in our role as parents, as grandparents, brethren, to help us guide our children and help them develop the right way. Okay. You got ages 2 to 6, kids are usually going to react pretty intensely. Okay? They're going to cry, they're going to pitch a fit, they're going to holler, they're going to do whatever they do if they have to wait. Okay? Because they don't understand somebody else's point of view yet. They're all about themselves, right? If you can remember back, I can think back to when my kids were 2 to 6. They weren't thinking about the greater good. They weren't thinking about having to be patient. They're just thinking about, this is something that I want, and if I'm not getting it, then I'm going to make some noise until somebody's tuned in to me making noise. The world revolves around them. Question. Are your kids still exhibiting these behaviors at age 8, 10, 17, 25? There's a point here. You just have to remember this, that patience is a learned behavior. Okay? It's not something they're just going to get. They have to be taught. And if there's no teaching about the why behind the need for patience, and the kids have learned to get their way pretty quick by just acting out, what else do you think that they're going to do except practice that learned behavior that they know is going to bring them success? They have to be taught about patience. They have to learn to be patient, and it's a process. Just don't forget to teach your kids the why behind what it is that you're doing them, behind the because. Don't forget that part. Because if your answer is just, well, you have to do this because I said so. I've probably said that, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 times. Okay? Well, it doesn't really work as well as, let me tell you why we're doing it this way. Okay? There may still be a fit. There may still be a lack of agreement. There may still be some problems. But you have to reinforce, here's why I'm telling you these things. Here's why, in our case, you have to be patient. Okay, I'll leave this up there if you want to write this down, but I found a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting. One, the first one in green, is an article, and it's you can kind of get the idea. Teaching children to wait well. Well, that's interesting. And there's a little bit of stuff in there that you might find useful if you want to go and look that up. But the organization is called connectedfamilies.org. But that's the particular article, is teaching children to wait well. There's another one, if there's little kids, so grandparents, if you've got an opportunity to try to jump in there, or if you've got kids that are at home that are still younger, there's a YouTube thing on teaching them about patience, trying to get them to understand what's this concept, what are we talking about? I mean, I can't lay on the floor and yell and scream. Okay, let me show you something else here. So, and you can always see me afterwards if you didn't write that down. I can send it to you or whatever. So, just some questions here, and these are for yourselves to just quiz yourself, I guess. How patient are you with your kids? Follow along with that with how patient are you with your spouse? There's a connection there, maybe. Okay. What kind of example are you setting about patience? Okay. When you're trying to talk about this, or your kid's going, there's a disconnect here. I hear what you're saying, but I don't see what you're doing as being the same thing as what you're saying. Okay? What do your kids see in you at home? Okay? What do they observe? Are they observing the kind of behavior that you want them to learn? Do you value patience as a virtue in your own life? All you have to do, I guess, is think about how long am I going to sit here at this stoplight? When is this train going to end? Okay, I'm late. I've got to get to fill in the blank. All the stuff that we go through every day. Well, do we value patience as something we can add to ourselves? Are you a patient parent? How do you feel when your kid makes impatient demands? Do you just start to get hot? Okay. Do you get exercised yourself? Do you head off in a direction that maybe you don't want to head off in? And the worst of all, then you react upon those feelings that you now have that you really wish you didn't? Well, maybe there's some work to do. And this last one, it really is descriptive, I guess. Are you an assumptive or a reactionary or an intentional parent? What's an assumptive parent? What would that be? Hands off. Yeah, okay. Or I thought you knew. I thought you understood this, Sparky. Okay. Sparky's 3. Okay. Maybe Sparky's 17 and he's still on the floor in the grocery. I don't know. Okay. Well, you can't assume stuff, right? Never make that assumption that your kids are going to get it until you know for sure that they do. Are you a reactionary parent? Okay. Lower the boom. Go get me a stick. Whatever. Are you right out the gate trying to figure out a way to react to whatever it is? Maybe there's some patience you could work on. Or are you intentional? Okay. I think we all get what that means. We can't be intentional about something if we don't understand how to do it. If we don't understand how to do it, then we have an opportunity to learn. Okay? And there's all sorts of advice and guidance from God that will help us in our parenting role to be intentional. Okay, so now it's your turn. What is working for you with your kids in teaching them how to be patient? Ready, go. So is that something you would share with the kids? You would. That's brilliant. I have to say, okay, kids are always looking for the why. They're always looking for something behind it. Okay, that's tremendous. Okay, to actually make yourself vulnerable in a way. Hey, Dad's not perfect. Okay, but if I would have done this, etc. So now here's your opportunity. That's terrific. That's great. Who else? You're among friends. Your friends may be wanting to hear what you have to say because maybe they're stuck. A lot of repetition. Okay. How do we learn things? Repetition. There's a lot of educators in here. I think, we all get that, okay, especially at the younger ages. But it works the same way for us as adults, okay? Repetition until we get it, okay? Hopefully it doesn't take us as long, right? But repetition is terrific, okay? That's terrific. Yeah, that's great. And that's one of those things that most of us don't have enough of, okay, because we've got other stuff in the way. Well, it's a real challenge to try to put down whatever my work thing is, my hobby thing is, my whatever I want to do thing is, and look at your kids and try to take an opportunity to spend some time with them. Okay? Because that can be huge for a lot of fixes. Okay? That's great. It really is. I mean, why not go to the best source that we have, right? God is here to help us with these things and maybe are a challenge. Well, let's let him teach not only us, but teach our kids through us. Okay? That's great. Very, very good. Yeah, and It's interesting. Every so often I'll have somebody come and they'll ask me for advice on parenting. They're going to be a new parent or they've got really little kids, little. And my advice is almost always the same. If the kids think they're in charge, you lost. You're the parent. You're in charge. Okay? You don't have to be anything aggressive or manipulative or anything that would have any negative connotation to it. But if the kids think they're in charge, you're going to have a really hard time getting anything done. Okay? It's just going to be a constant battle. And if you wait too long, it's going to be pretty hard to correct. Okay? So that's good. Thanks, Tom.
Generally, that means you're the one who holds the metaphorical key or physical key. And so the challenge is holding the house. They want it and they want it now, but to say, with them, she would always say no first because she knows follow that. But when they're being impatient, you're probably, until they get to a certain age, you're holding what they want, and you can decide when and if it is.
Hey, it's a great opportunity to teach, right? Great way to do it. Thank you. Yeah, good. Yes. But Dad, no. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Good point. Yeah. Okay. Well, those are great. Okay. Here's just a reminder. We are all in this together. Okay. So if you're having some challenges, you're stuck, you're not exactly sure what you need to do, there are, as Tom said, there are lots of really great parents in this room, and great parents in our congregation, and maybe wherever you're from, we're everywhere. Okay. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for some advice. Okay. Here's my situation. What would you do? Okay. And you may learn something and you think, well, man, that was easy. Okay. I can do that. Okay. But don't stay stuck, okay, if you're stuck. So follow on then is, what isn't working? Now this could be embarrassing, so you could use this, preface your remarks by, I know a guy. We couldn't have planned that any better. Okay, always saying yes. Okay, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
One of the things, obviously, is learning by example. And not being prepared and taking preparation in whatever you're doing can lead to a panic, rush situation where everyone's in this. And you're demonstrating an example then of behavior. And not only an example of not being prepared, but also of it's okay to be impatient and rush and things not going your way. So I think trying to be more cognizant of the fact there's a correlation between your preparedness and how chaotic and stressful that brings and brings out impatience in everyone.
Very true. Very true. What else doesn't work? Yes. Great. Yeah, terrific. Yeah, so if they are programmed into thinking, well, what if I make a noise? Bang, I get whatever it is. Okay, Pavlov's dog. Okay, these kids they're not stupid. Okay, they figure this out pretty quick. So if yes seems to be the operative word, they're going to capitalize on that, and it's not going to work too well for you in the long run. What about if you're a single parent? Okay, that's a situation that I'm going to address. You don't have to deal with. But if you and your spouse, what if you're not on the same page with whatever it is? You think the kids are going to figure that out? Oh boy. Okay, pretty quickly. Okay. So you always need to be sure that you and your spouse have the same narrative. You've got the same thinking behind how you're going to develop patience or kindness or gratitude or anything, really. Okay? You guys need to be together with whatever it is. If you're not, then you need to have a conversation with each other so you can get there, so that then there's no divide and conquer attempted by the 13-year-old. Okay? Because you know how that goes. Right? If you haven't gotten there, just wait. Okay? All right, what else isn't working? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's getting shorter, okay, in our society, not your 3-year-old grandson, but, that's what's happening, okay, the instant gratification and everything is so fast anymore. So that's true. And I mentioned before, patience is a learned behavior, okay? So we have to be patient with our teaching about patience. We can't just expect them to get it right off the bat, especially when they're 2. Now, when they're 25, hopefully the conversation isn't going to take forever for them to get there. But when they're 2, it's like almost learning another language, okay? Because think back to the horse. You can't break a horse in 30 minutes. Okay? You can't just espouse this idea for these kids and have them get it in a day, especially the younger they are. So it takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of teaching and a lot of patience on your part so that you can work toward things that are going to be successful and not stay stuck with things that don't work. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they do. They're little imitators. Yeah. How many of you have multiple kids? How many of you pretty much taught everybody the same way? How different are I have 2 kids. I can't get my arms farther enough apart to explain how different they are. Okay? They are night and day different from one another. We didn't do anything different raising them, but one of them went this way and one of them went that way. So we had to learn how to work with this one to where we'll get through to that one. And it's not the same bunch of steps with this one over here. So yeah, we've got to understand our kids and understand how to communicate with them, okay, so that they're going to understand what we're trying to say. Okay, yes. That's true. That's really true. Very good. Very good. Okay, well, again, just remember that there are resources that are available to us as God's people that we can tap into to help us teach our kids how to do things the right way. Okay, the point of all this is parenting is a verb. Okay, I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but don't forget, okay, this is an active thing. Your child is your child. Okay? You're responsible for it. Teaching, helping your kid, and you have to help them understand who's in charge. It's you. Okay? Don't ever forget that, and don't give up on that position. Okay? Being a parent requires a lot of patience. Okay? You think about God's patience with creation. We've really made it tough on God. If you stop and think about it, okay, we haven't been very good in the way that we deal with Him. And we push the boundaries, and we ask for this, and we want that, and we're looking for some sort of an exception. Okay? That's just who we are. And we make a mess out of it. Just like our kids do. Okay? Well, what's His position with us? 2 Peter 3:9 is probably one of the greatest passages in the Scripture for hope, at least for me. Okay? This is one that I am so thankful that this is God in His greatest amount of mercy. He is not slow about His promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward you, Martin. Not willing for any to perish, Martin, but for all to come to repentance. Okay. So, we need to be patient with our kids. Now, can we have an infinite amount of patience? Sure, we can. We just have to train ourselves, right? So somebody already mentioned that. We kind of have to look to ourselves to see if we're able to teach what we would like to see in them. Well, if we don't see it in ourselves, we can fix it. We can fix it. All right. Children aren't born with it, but they can learn it over time. You can help your kids learn patience by modeling patient behavior, praising them when they are patient, and don't forget to correct them when they are impatient. It goes both ways. If you struggle with this yourself, you can get better at it if you just spend some time. Pray about it. Study about it. God's Word is full of situations and examples and stories that we can look to make ourselves feel better and give ourselves some grace and realize that, hey, God is for me. I can do this. I can get better at it. So, minute and a half to spare. Any other thoughts, questions, or anything? The things that you did share, thank you so much, and hopefully you got something out of this. And I don't know if there's a bell or not, but we're supposed to stop at 2:10. So we're done.